Alright, let's continue. So let's come to the fingers and we're going to add some geometry over here. So I'm going to again create another layer. So I'm adding a lot of layers over here, so I have a much control. And let me go try with the clay buildup. I'm going to add a little bit extra geometry over here. And actually I'm going to keep it symmetrical. So I'm adding a little bit texture over here, like that. So we are bringing that out the legs over here, and maybe then we can just go to the trim dynamic and just flatten out a little bit. And then going back to the clay buildup, it's getting closer. Okay, trim dynamic, and going back and forth. Just like that. Okay. Maybe the corners. And then we can switch to the diamond stand. Let's add more wrinkles. It's a little bit difficult to see from the hands. But wherever you tap anywhere, it's going to stay focused. It becomes a pivot point over there. Let's add a little bit texture. So let's go to the displays and let's try to add wrinkles over here to the corners. So what I did is just add a base for the blocking, and now I'm adding the textures, so it's going to override over there. I'm going to turn off the symmetry so we can do it asymmetrical. There we go. Let's add a little bit more. Let's keep adding the wrinkles. And there we go. Okay, so I'm going to turn on the floor, and just to see how it's going to look like, we can go to the render and make sure our render properties are already set. Right. So I'm going to make things a little bit more better. So I'm going to turn on the occlusion, and I'm also going to turn on the wax preview. And you want to go to the PPR shadows, and I'm going to give the value 125, which going to gives more rays into the shadows, and it's going to calculate more accurate. I'm going to give a little bit angle over here, so it's going to be more soften the shadows over here. The ambient occlusion, I'm going to give more accuracy over here, so I'm going to give maybe 125 rays over here. And what exactly the ambient occlusion, just to give you an idea what exactly it is, it's actually where the geometry are quite nearby, close to each other. There's going to be a dark shadow. So for example, if you have a mobile and you put it on your table, and the table and the mobile, in between there's a dark shadow over there. That shadow is the ambient occlusion. So in here we're going to see the ambient occlusion most probably to the nearby where the geometry are getting close to each other, and this is where the ambient occlusions are made. So ambient occlusion generally create more contrast to your object, so it really pops out all the details, so it's really useful. So once we have this, I'm also going to go to the materials and add the wax preview over here, just to give some, maybe 45%, and maybe just find a good angle, and we can do a BPR render over here. Now this render is going to take a little bit of time because it requires more rays, so it's going to calculate more rays. It's going to take a little bit more time, but you'll see in a minute. Almost almost done, and there we go. As you can see, it looks much better than before, and it's quite softer, and you can see all the details are coming out nicely. Great, so let's keep adding more details, and the more details you have, the more wrinkles you have. It's going to allow us to see the character more better. And there we go. Again, it's a little bit hard to select, so I'm going to turn on the perspective, turn on the grid, Control Shift, and just select this area so we can focus over here. I'm also going to use the trim dynamic just to flatten out these things. And this place, keep adding the wrinkles, even overwriting the wrinkles, just completely fine. And then going to the dimension. There we go. And it's just one part. I have to do it on the other side as well because we're doing the asymmetrical. There we go, Control Shift. Tap it over here, hit the F. Yeah, looks good. Let's turn on the perspective. I'm going to add a little bit more deep cuts over here. Over here as well. Set Control Shift and just select this area. It's going to just plane it out this little bit inside area. Need to do the same on the other side. It should look like it can grab things easily. Okay. Control Shift Tab, hit F. There we go. Great. Let's start working on the nails as well. Let's select the nails. And what I'm going to do is, since it's on the low resolution, so we can subdivide by hitting Control D. Make it 2 million, I guess. So 2 million is good enough. And I'm going to hit Shift D, go to the low poly, and just align them properly. And make sure I'm in the symmetry. Hold down Shift. There we go. Hit the Alt key and just move to the fingers. Make sure they are aligned properly. You can hit Control D some few times just to see how they are coming. Maybe just a little bit smoothing over here. Don't make it too small, but make sure they are blend together nicely. Hold down Alt just to bring it out like that. Okay, looks good. Hit the D key. And now we need to add a little bit texture. So again, we're going to create a layer. And let's see what kind of a texture we can apply over here. And I go with the standard brush and use the alpha 60. And since it's coming out, I wanted to push it in. Give the value around maybe 15. It's kind of a wavy over here. Let's try something else. Maybe let's try this. Now it's too big. So I'll try to modify with the alpha. And let's bring over here. Go to modify. And what we can do is, first of all, I'm going to turn on the anti-aliasing over here. So the alpha is going to look much more sharper and crisper. Also, I'm going to increase the height tiling over here. You can see the tiling has been increased. We can increase the vertical, but I think I'm okay with the height. Maybe let's try 4 and 5. I think it's good. You also have the RF, which is going to make things a little bit rounded, more like a rounded alpha. You can increase the contrast if you want. Looks look good. And you can add a little bit noise in the radius at the corner of the edges. So let's try that. Let's see how it's going to look like. Looks good. Now, first I'm going to add this pattern over here, and then I'm just going to start smoothing it out. So just blend it nicely. So in some way it's going to see it, in some not. Just keep adding them and then start removing them. It's more again push and pull method. Over here I'm going to use the trend dynamic just to clean up the plates, look it more sharper, more dangerous. Let's keep it this way. Since I'm doing this symmetrical, the effect is applying on the both side. And let's go to the standard again. Let's keep applying the pattern. I'm going to damage a lot. Okay. And let's turn on off the symmetrical, and I'm going to manually damage it. Over here I'm going to do the both side. Let's go to the trim dynamic again. You can also try with the polish. Polish is also good, but I'm comfortable with the trim dynamic, that's why I mostly use that. There we go. Let's go to the standard and again adding more details. And just smoothing it out like that. Turning off the symmetrical over here. And there we go. Let's go outside again, and looks good. Let's do the same over here. So let's subdivide first and see what we got. How many polygons over here? It's almost like 101. Let's continue. 1 million. 6 million. I think 1 million is good enough. You never wanted to do overdose the things. Don't go crazy. Remember, it's not about the subdividing will make things more crisp and sharper. It's about the blocking stage, and then you go into that finest detail, and you need to ask yourself, do you really need that finest details over there when the camera is not going to look over there and you're just adding the details? it will be completely a waste of time if you're doing this. So you need to make sure that wherever the cameras and the players are going to be focused, you need to add the details over there. But if you have extra time, of course, go ahead and do over there. But you know, especially in the tight deadline when you have the projects, you want to make sure that you are adding the details which is the require. Okay, looks good. Let's go to standard. And I just want to make sure. Oh yeah, I didn't create the layer. My bad. Sometimes it's happened. Turning off my symmetrical and there we go. And again, shifting down, holding down shift and smoothing out. Okay. Great. Now we have the claws. Let's start focusing on the teeth. And hit F so that we can stay focused. I think hit the Control D. And if you want, you can go with the manually and fixing all the teeth. For example, like this one, what we can do is trim dynamic, just adding a little bit trim dynamic to the corners just to make it a little bit more sharper. I'm going to find those teeth which are more visible over here. I'm going to increase the subdivision and make sure we are okay, it's going to 3 million. Again, adding the layer over here. Control Shift Tab and just the corners, make it more sharper, much more visible. You can do one more thing. If you go to the brush and go to the masking and increase this value. So what's going to happen if I'm affecting on this polygon, it's only going to affect only on this polygon because of the polygroups. So in this way you have much control. If you want to sculpt on, for example, like this, it's not going to affect on to the others. Great. Let's do the down teeth. Hold on Alt and Control D, subdivide them and give it a layer. Just make sure it's on symmetrical. There we go. Great. Now we have much better details. Let's do the over here as well. And yeah, this look good. Let's give it a little bit more shape. Just a little bit texture over here. And what I'm going to do is, now generally when you change the alpha, it changes all the alphas actually. So you might want to go back and set again to the default. So for example, the noise radius and the one edge tile. And actually I'm going to go to the standard brush, and now it's on the default, which that's what I was looking for it. And I'll just give a little bit texture over here, doing asymmetrical, just a little bit texture, and just a little bit. Not going to visible that much, but it's going to enhance our texture. Also from the inside, in case if somebody see it. Okay, just a little bit more. Okay, there we go. It's ready to go, I guess. It's look good now. You might want to see your character in every angle in case if there is something missing. So for example, I still feel over here the texture can be improved, so I'm going to take Diamond Standard and start adding those details over here, enhancing this part. So take your time, start adding those details. And I'm going to keep adding more details, and I'll see you in the next class.